morning, everybody. Welcome to Sydney Motorsport Park for our Sunday racing, the last Sydney race meeting of the New South Wales Motor Racing Championships. My name is Bruce Moxon and I'll be your host commentator today. I would be honoured and more than pleased if anybody from category management wishes to come up and correct all my many mistakes through the day today. I apologise in advance for all those mistakes, but not being a teenager anymore, I no longer know everything. I do know that on pole position for this 20-minute race is Stephen Lacey in his Chev Camaro sports sedan, and next to him on the grid will be the first of our production sports cars, Jake Donaldson and his Porsche. Brad Carr and Arthur Savolas make up the second row of the grid, both in Porsches, both prod sports cars. Chris Jackson next in the Holden Calibra Chev that had some dramas yesterday with its pace, very quick early on but dropped away later in the race. Andrew Leithhead next, then Rod Moynihan, Mark Duggan and Graham Smith rear of grid. Graham Smith had something ugly hanging out the back of the RX-7 sports sedan yesterday, and I'm not sure if he's out there now, but we'll know in a moment. Here they come down towards the start line. The red lights are on, the red lights go out and the cars go. And once again, Chris Jackson getting a good start in the Calibra, but this time he's blocked in a little bit and can't make his way through the traffic. So fourth place between the Donaldson and Carr Porsches, but in front of Savolas' Porsche, which did not get away well. Jack Donaldson having a bit of a run around the outside of Stephen Lacey there through turn 2. Can't quite make the move stick. But that's let Carr into the picture and the two Porsches go over the top of the hill side by side. See how that sorts out. They're still side by side into turn 4. They're still side by side out of turn 4. Some good precision driving here. And finally, it's number 8. No, the number 8 did slot into second place, but Donaldson's coming back at him in 303 and takes that second place through turn 6, the lake corner, and they head up the hill now, finally in single file. Chris Jackson still fourth. The two Porsches scrapping over second place has let Stephen Lacey get a little bit of a lead, not a huge one by any means. But we're heading for the end of the first lap. And the two Porsches still very close together, and Mark Duggan making up places now in the Aston Martin, the VB sponsored car. Gee, that looks a picture. Ahead of Chris Jackson's Calibra Chev. But we'll just see how they shake out down the straight. So here comes Stephen Lacey, and he had a substantial straight line speed advantage yesterday and was able to use that to keep Jake Donaldson at bay all the way through the race. So the speed advantage that should be enough as long as he's in front every time coming onto the straight. Donaldson running second, then Carr, Duggan, Jackson, Savolas, Leithhead, Moynihan and Graham Smith wasn't able to take the start. We're already about a third of the way through the second lap, over the tunnel down into turn 4, and Stephen Lacey's moved away to about a 1.5 second lead. The two Porsches are lined up behind him. They're about half a second apart too. So the race now settling down into a pattern. But sometimes these cars can be a bit brittle, particularly the sports sedans. Lots of power and doing everything they can to keep the weight out of the cars. So that can lead to things breaking every now and again, sadly. Not wishing that on anyone, but it's always something to consider. So Lacey leads out of the hairpin, the two Porsches. Again, Lacey not really getting away around the back of the track and just using that straight line speed advantage. Well, if you've got it, use it. As they say, Mark Duggan now well clear of Chris Jackson in fourth place, and looks like he's setting out in pursuit of the Porsches. And again down the straight, Lacey again maintaining that handy lead. So Mark Duggan about just under 8 seconds away from the leader. We'll see what he can do over the next couple of laps, whether he can close in a little bit on Carr and Donaldson. So there's Brad Carr on screen now in the CMA Porsche, the white car. Nice plain livery, not too cluttered. Nothing wrong with Jake Donaldson's car either. It's the blue and the black break up the white quite nicely and give it an interesting silhouette when seen from a distance, or perhaps I really need to go to Specsavers. Looking now for our fourth place car, Mark Duggan, who's maybe, is he getting closer? This is the question. So 6.4 seconds at the last timing mark. Here he comes around the back of Corporate Hill and down into the hairpin. Go past the timing mark in a moment now, and is he closing? No, he is not. Indeed, he is dropping away, so perhaps he's decided that he can't do anything about them, so there's no point beating the car up. Finishing lap 3 now, and Steve Lacey still with that handy lead. Jake Donaldson still a comfortable gap to Brad Carr. Mark Duggan next, and yes, dropped away a few tenths in that last half lap or so. Then Chris Jackson and Arthur Savolikos in his Porsche. Chris Jackson in the Calibra Chev. The Calibra, that car's been around for a long time. It was chosen because its body shape, the Holden or Opel Calibra, had one of the lowest coefficients of drag of any car in the world at the time. Never mind that under the skin it was basically a Chimera. But there's probably not too much Calibra left in this car. It's a full space frame chassis with a body draped over the top. Gravely doubt where any of the panels are interchangeable anymore. And while it's an old car, it's still a good one, and it's doing well enough to be running fifth in this race. Arthur Savolikos in his Porsche in hot pursuit. Not giving Chris Jackson any rest there as they head down into turn 6. But again, the Calibra should have a fairly substantial straight line advantage. But according to our timing screen, it doesn't. There you go, 247 to 250 Ks. So there's nothing in it in terms of those two cars. Indeed, I beg your pardon, Chris Jackson, hang on, no. Right, yes, I was right the first time. So those two cars are actually a bit quicker than the Porsches that are running second and third in a straight line. Watching Mark Duggan go down the straight with that big block Chev booming away. So Chris Jackson and Arthur Savolikos are pretty much the main battle going on in the race. They're fairly close together. Heading now through turn 1. Down towards turn 2, of course, Bond Bend. The second and third place Porsches are at a fairly substantial straight line speed disadvantage to nearly every other car in the race. Except for Mike Moynihan's Commodore, which really looks suspiciously close to standard. It might be a better fit in improved production, but I'm sure there's something about the car that doesn't meet the improved production rules. Meanwhile, if we look at second and third, and we're doing that now, and they've closed right up again, so maybe Jake Donaldson's had half a moment in that last lap or so, and that's brought Brad Carr right back into contention. They're coming onto the straight now. Let's see if Brad Carr's close enough to do anything about it this lap. Stephen Lacey shoots across the line. So there's only all of 3/10 between the second and third place cars now. It was out to about a second, a lap or two ago. So has Brad Carr got anything for Donaldson? Certainly neither of them has anything at the moment for the fire-breathing Camaro of Stephen Lacey. But gee, Cars very close now through turn 2 and into turn 3. Got a sniff of second place over the tunnel and down into turn 4. But Donaldson's car seems to be a little bit quicker through this part of the track. And while the battle continues for Jackson and Savolikis for 5th place, Savolikis in touch, but not close enough to mount an attack at the moment. Looking for our 2nd and 3rd place cars, and they're just coming into the hairpin. They're not on screen at the moment, sorry. So Savolikis still in hot pursuit of Chris Jackson, but just doesn't seem to have too much for him at this stage. Although he's very quick there out of turn 4 and up the hill towards turn 5 out towards turn 6. The two cars seem, despite vast differences in design and construction, very, very close together in terms of their performance. And mixing these two classes up has shown us some interesting racing over this year, and also filled up the grids of the two races. The two classes weren't able to form much of a grid individually, but together they make an interesting and competitive race for the two classes. So the sports sedans and production sports hopefully will continue to run together next year. Here comes this battle between our 5th and 6th placed cars, and they're still very close together. All of 0.3 of a second between them, just under. So Chris Jackson's had his little bit of fun down the straight, and now Arthur Savolikis can use the Porsche's more nimble handling, slightly better braking perhaps, and better turn into advantage. And we're looking across on the live track view here, and Jake Donaldson's locked a front brake going into the hairpin, and Brad Carr has ranged up alongside him on the exit of the hairpin and does a bit of a desperate dive into the right-hander into the last complex of corners and takes 2nd place. So a slight mistake there from Jake Donaldson, and Brad Carr is all over it. But now Donaldson's coming back at him down the straight, making a move onto the inside of turn 1 and gets the job done. But Donaldson should be in a good Carr should be in a good position here to maybe get down the inside. No, Donaldson's closed that off. Carr goes right down the outside, takes what is the more traditional racing line and generally considered to be faster, but all that extra pace is no good if you've got nowhere to go, and Donaldson's positioned his car perfectly in order to block off that passing move. This has really come alive now. Brad Carr will be trying to push Jake Donaldson into another little mistake. He's had a sniff. He liked that little moment in 2nd place. I'll have more of that, thank you. Arthur Savolikis in hot pursuit still of Chris Jackson. Still the gap's about the same. It's all of 0.4 of a second now. Stephen Lacey out in front on his own in the Real Dairy Lederer car, but the two cars for 2nd place, and again, gee whiz, Brad Carr's quick into there on the brakes, and Jake Donaldson takes a very defensive line into the turn 9 Creek Corner hairpin. The defensive line is not the fast line, but it's... Oh, and Donaldson has a little bit of a sideways moment there in the middle of the two left-handers coming onto the straight. Whether that slows him down enough onto the straight to give Brad Carr a bit of a run, seems not. But again, there's nothing between these two Porsches, and the race has come alive for the last lap or so. See if they can keep this momentum. Arthur Savolikis is still nibbling away at the back of Chris Jackson's car. Hasn't been able to make a move stick yet. But it's by no means over in terms of that battle as well. Looking now at our two Porsches, and Brad Carr has again moved in front of so I'm writing notes to myself while I try and talk. It's not good. Brad Carr's moved into second again in front of Donaldson. Again, it looks like he's done it under brakes. And they're heading up the hill towards the hairpin. Never mind Stephen Lacey. He's comfy out there in front, and Jake Donaldson again locks the wheel turning into the hairpin. So he might have put a little mark on that tyre, and every time you're braking really hard, the tyre will find that spot. We've got a replay now, and the nose to tail out of turn 2 and into turn 3, and Jake Donaldson's just run wide over the top of the tunnel and given Brad Carr enough of a sniff to make the move stick into turn 4. And we've just finished our ninth lap, I beg your pardon. Brad Carr's moved away a little bit now from Jake Donaldson. Donaldson might have decided that discretion has to be the better part of valour for the rest of this race. He's made a couple of blues. It could be his tyres have gone off or worn out. It's warm out there. There's a lot of sunlight on the track. The track will probably be a little bit greasy as a result of that. But it is going to be hot today, and if you need to cool down and get a cool drink, head up to the Pit Stop Cafe above the number 1 pit garage. Get yourself an icy cold can of Coke, or whatever it takes your fancy. We're looking now at Rod Moynihan. I don't think it is Rod Moynihan in his, I think that's a VY or VZ Commodore, and a very standard looking car. Its body kit doesn't even look as, it looks a bit like a supercar, but not quite. Meanwhile, Arthur Savolas has got past Chris Jackson and has put a bit of a gap on him, 3.5 seconds. So his patience has paid off. He was finally able to get past the Calibra. So all of the duels in this race are becoming settled. Last lap board being prepared now for Steve Lacey, who has so far had a perfect weekend. Let's not put the mockers on him quite yet. Stephen, a stalwart of this category, also heavily involved in the management of the category, and always does a great job, both for himself and for his sponsors, for Real Dairy and for Lederer. It's a pity I'm lactose intolerant, really. And Stephen makes his way through turn 3 over the tunnel. We haven't looked at him too much on the coverage today because the battles behind him have been so intense, but they all look like they've settled down. In fact, Stephen seems to have backed off a bit in the last lap or so. He's done the fastest lap of the race, a 1:34.9. Rod Moynihan just going past us on the main straight now. So Mark Duggan being well established in 4th place for several laps now, or pretty much from the beginning of the race. Arthur Savolas has made his way into 5th with a move on Chris Jackson late in the race. I reckon that's probably how they're going to run out, barring any jokers in the pack. We'll see if the surprise party department or the jack-in-the-box department have got anything for us. Let's hope not. It's been a lovely, clean race so far, and it's been an absolutely perfect drive for Stephen Lacey. Didn't put a foot wrong all race, did just enough to take the win by about 2.5 seconds. Perfect race, Stephen. Terrific drive, Brad Carr, to put pressure on Jake Donaldson until he made a couple of mistakes and they swapped places a few times. That was great stuff. Good hard racing. So Brad Carr and Jake Donaldson run home 2nd and 3rd. Next will be Mark Duggan in the Aston Martin. Spectacular looking car. If you're down at turn 2, by the way, put your hands together for the drivers as they come past you. Thank them for their entertainment. Here comes Mark Duggan, a long way wide of the leaders. So about just under 40 seconds off the lead. Waiting now for Arthur Savolis, who's just coming into the last complex of corners. Chris Jackson behind him. Then Andrew Leithhead, and we haven't talked about him all race in his Mark car, the Ford Focus bodied car, but he's had a steady run with no dramas, and that's the first thing you need to achieve. Speed comes later, so let's get the reliability happening. And here comes Chris Jackson down the main straight, and he'll take the checkered flag in a few seconds. All right, quick break. As I said, if you need a drink, if you need to cool down, head up to the air-conditioned Pit Stop Cafe up above the number 1 pit garage. And we'll be back with you very shortly for our next race, which is for Formula Cars.